try again. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, mate.
Top man, top man. Right, Graeme, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on our sports seminar. Obviously, for our viewers, you're known as Spike to me, so we're gonna keep it as Spike, so everyone knows that's your nickname. Obviously, only you.
I'm usually Graeme. Graeme's when I'm in trouble anyway, so I'll take with Spike.
That's all right. That's okay. So, Graeme, just obviously, it's fantastic having you on. Just what's your earliest memory of playing football?
Earliest memory? Oh, probably playing with my brother in the garden. He was obsessed. Ball always at his feet, and I was the one who was always in the house or watching the cartoons, and he used to drag me outside all the time. And then going for trials, really, as a young kid, like for Martin, when I was about 7-year-old. I remember turning up and getting probably about 50-odd kids and playing little games, and that's when it started. Got picked to go on the team, and then just went from there.
So who did you play for as a kid? What was it a local junior team?
Martin Football Club. So I went there from probably, I think I played a year or two above. So I was 7 or 8 when I started. And in them days, you didn't go to the academies. It was School of Excellence. So I stayed with Martin until I was 14, 15.
Well, but obviously, your dad was a big influence, wasn't he, on football?
Yeah, but dad was a manager. He played himself, and then he was a manager of the non-leagues, and he went from Whitby when we were really young, Billiam Symphonia, Bishop Auckland, Gateshead, it's probably Spennymoor. So followed him when I wasn't playing. I'd follow him his games, and it was a footballing house. Even my mum, I think.
How did he influence you, sort of thing? So obviously, was he a big influence on you and your brother?
Probably my influence was my brother, because he just wanted to play all the time. My dad, they never pushed us, but with it being such a footballing family, that it was always going to be, you were always going to be involved in some way or other. If I was playing in the garden with my brother, I'd go to watch my dad's teams play, or I'll play myself. So it was literally, football was our life within the household. And like I said, my brother was the one who was constant all the time wanting to play, and he was a good player at his age group, and he was my challenge every day.
Yeah, I know. I mean, your brother Anthony signed for Middlesbrough when he was obviously 16. Obviously, he got released for obviously one reason or another in football. In terms, how did that drive you on, or did that make you more determined?
It was strange. I was at Middlesbrough at the same time as him, but he was obviously older. And then when he left through more of a fallout than football reasons, and obviously that took me away from Middlesbrough as well at the time. So I went to Leeds and a few different ones, but I don't know. It was just, I always wanted to be, from like once I started playing and enjoying it, I always wanted to be a player. And seeing my brother and probably a few things he'd done, what he's not fond of now, then made me realise how dedicated you have to be and disciplined. And we went, I had knockbacks from Middlesbrough to Leeds and different ones, but it never fazed me. I always just looked for the next challenge. And fortunate enough, I played against Hartlepool when I was under 16s, and I was at York at the time, and Billy Horner pulled my dad and said, if he comes here now, I'll give him an apprenticeship, a YES at the time. So, and just because I wanted that opportunity, I snapped the hands off it. York were in the Championship at the time, and Hartlepool were in League 4. It will have been at the Division 4 at the time, but I just wanted that opportunity to go into professional football from school.
That's like so good that you keep getting knockbacks, but you've kept obviously plugging away. And obviously, as you say, your brother was a big influence on you because he wanted to play. Was that a challenge then?
I think I look back and only probably reflecting in the last 5 years, he was like known as one of the best in his age group. He was 3 years above me, and no brother takes it easy on the younger brother. So from a 4, 5, 6-year-old, I had the best player in his age group playing against me in the garden every day. So I was challenged every day, and that was, I look back and I think, you look how you developed and what you've developed, and that was probably one of my biggest reasons how I developed and improved and kept improving. And even when I was a player, he still challenged me every day, head tennis or different stuff. So it continued. But yeah, he was a massive impact on helping me become professional.
That's great. And then obviously you signed for Hartlepool, and it wasn't long. I mean, just under research, that you actually made your debut at Arsenal, and obviously looking through, what was that like? Obviously, the likes of Dennis Bergkamp, Ian Wright, you're 17-year-old making your debut for Hartlepool against Arsenal at Highbury. What was that like?
It was surreal. There was 3 of us from the youth team got took on the trip with the first team. We knew that one of us was going to get on the bench, but we didn't know which one. And it wasn't until the pre-match meal. I can remember the manager Keith Houchin pulling us 3 and saying that I was going to go on the bench. And I remember walking on the pitch at Highbury, the grass, the pitch, everything about it. But from playing at Blackall on a Saturday morning to then stepping on Highbury's pitch, and I think I always remember looking up and there was 27,000 there, and the noise and everything about. And when I came on the pitch, it was just the noise I could hear. It was like, I think I got 10 minutes, and I always remember John Harton getting the ball, and I ran over and I tackled him, and I felt as though it was too easy, and everyone would be laughing at me. So I just booted the ball up the pitch, and I had a look around and thought, oh, that's actually all right. But yeah.
But obviously, the team you were playing against, the likes of Bergkamp, Ian Wright, these are well-known international players.
Yeah.
How did that show you what you could be or what you needed to be?
It was weird at the time. I don't think, because I was that nervous about being on the bench and thinking about that, I don't think I really appreciated who was on that pitch. I look back now and I thought that was my debut. I didn't even look to try and get a shirt at the end. I didn't do anything. I was gobsmacked. I was looking at the surroundings and just taking it all in. I look back now and you had that famous back 4 of Tony Adams and all them at the back, Ian Wright, Bergkamps, and you're like, wow. But at the time, I don't think I was just that, and buzzing that I'd got on the pitch, that I didn't really appreciate who was on that pitch. The year before, we played them and I watched the game, Hartlepool, Arsenal, and I think I'd appreciate the players more then than I did when they were in front of me.
I mean, and obviously then you went on from a 17-year-old to start making obviously more. You made your first team start, and obviously as a 17-year-old, how was that to go into like a first team football environment?
It was strange because from the Arsenal game, I'd been in and out on the bench a few times, but never really got back on. And then New Year's Day, I got pulled on New Year's Eve. We were training, and I used to go across and do the set plays with them. But I used to have to stand and watch. I'd take the corners for defending, and the managers pulled us and said, "No, you're in." And we were playing Bury away. And that was my debut on New Year's Day, which I'll never forget. And it was I'll never forget Keith Houchin gave me that opportunity for my full debut, and we went on to win that game 3-0 away at Bury. And I think I played the next game, and then I came out for a few. So I was in and out, but I remember only found out later in the year, Mick Tate, when he took over, gave me a run of games. And that's when I stayed in the first team. But he pulled me and told me after like 20-odd games that when he got the job, he said to himself he was going to give me 10 games on the bounce no matter what. And for a manager to do that for a young 17-year-old lad, I think looking back now, I appreciated everything. And what he gave us was amazing, really. To have faith in me, and no matter what, I'm going to give him 10 games. And at the time, we were in a relegation. It wasn't, we were in the mid-table or top end. It was relegation battles. So to have faith in me at that young age, I was delighted.
So if you're thinking about having faith, is that something that obviously helped you as a player, that a manager has faith in you and has confidence in you? What does that give you?
Oh, it's massive to know. Like you said, I didn't know at the time he was going to give me the 10 games. I was fighting for that place and delighted for every game I played. And when you look back and what he said to me, and you look back and think, wow, what an amazing thing, like for managers. And I look at managers now and I look at them giving young lads opportunities, and you think, wow, he gave me 10 games when his job was on the line every game, and we were battling relegation, but he had that faith. And you never know, from that 10 games could have stepped me up to help me go on for my career.
Do you think young players get opportunities like that now? Is that something you think that 17-year-olds get?
I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of managers. Depends what the managers believes and what type of player and what type of character the young lads are. It's harder now. I look back at when I was at Hartlepool, there was a youth team and the first team, so there was no in between. Now we've got the under 23s and the different loans they go on and different things, and the level of players and the standard where it is now it's amazing. But there is managers who will give the players the opportunity. It's just that them lads now. I think it'd be difficult for a manager to say, "I'll give you a lad 10 games," but
yeah, football's evolved massively from obviously. Football's evolved massively from when you obviously made your debut, and obviously you went on to play like nearly 250 games for Hartlepool, and obviously it was like really tough, as you say. What was it like as a tough upbringing, playing for your livelihood?
It was. I was fighting to be a professional. That's all I wanted. And I broke in the first team, like I said, in that season. But the next seasons, when I just spoke about the run of games, and I was getting interest, and people, agents, different things coming to me. And I always remember the next season, I was out of contract, and they offered me a new contract. And the money then, it wasn't. They offered me a couple £100 a week if I'd signed 2 years. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the 2 years. And I took them 2 years, and I looked at myself, and I had an agent from London at the time. I didn't dare tell him because he told me to sign a year. And I didn't tell him, and I took a 2-year contract. And I walked away from that office, not thinking about money, nothing, because it wasn't about money. It wasn't a great offer. But I got 2 more years. I've got 2 more years as a professional. And that's how I was thinking all the time. Another 2 years, come on. And that was it.
And obviously, you had a couple of hard years at Hartlepool. Then you had 3 years of playoff disappointment. What was that like?
It was strange. Back? The transition first was strange because, like I said, I broke into the first team when it was relegation fights every year, and then Chris took over. Chris Turner came in, and all of a sudden we were at the top end. And I remember looking at tables even when in December, January, when we were top 7, and I was working out that we were safe for the first couple of years. I kept looking, thinking, actually, I think we're safe now. And then it was a bit more relaxed, like we could go play on. But to get in them playoffs the first few years, the feeling of doing it was amazing, just to get in that and get that atmosphere. And I remember you'll have been with us when there's times on the bus on journeys back when we just got in the playoffs. You love them times. You remember them playing. To lose in them games, it destroys you for the summer. You have all the excitement, the thought of Wembley, and then to be knocked and lose at that final stage, and to do with 3 years in the bounce was it wasn't easy. But the character, what we had in the team, and Chris, the manager, got fair play, kept changing and bringing players in, and each year we got closer and closer. And then I always remember the year Cheltenham where he turned around and he told them, "We'll go straight up next year," and he was right.
But obviously going through them 3 years, you had a hard time because I know you did your cruciate ligament, didn't you?
Yeah.
But what was that like psychologically? To obviously, because science has changed for cruciate ligament injuries, and obviously people who don't know, I was there on the day you actually did your cruciate. You did an operation on your cartilage, and they told you to build up your quads, build up your calves, and you'll be fine. And I remember you tearing it on the day. So you're going to be out for 9 months. What's that like psychologically?
It was strange because I actually done my cruciate just before going back into pre-season training, but my knee was like, we didn't know I'd done it, we hadn't scanned it, and it was just something like, so I trained, I could run, but I couldn't kick the ball, I kept breaking down. So, and that's when I had the clear out, and that's when I found out I'd snapped my cruciate, but because the specialist thought I had a strong leg, he said, go away, build it up, and you might get away with it. I managed to play a reserve game until that day you were seen, where Paul Stevenson's done one of his Cruyff turns. I've went a turn with him, a whole knee rotated, and that was actually more painful than the day I actually done my cruciate. It was, but I don't know. I just, again, I look back when I was young lads and setbacks, and I didn't get phased. I didn't get upset. I just sort of like went, spoke, see what was needed to be done, and I had stages of rehab what I needed to do. So I looked at them stages. It was 6-week blocks. So I just looked at them 6-week blocks. With me building my leg up before having my operation, it put me in good stead. So I had a strong leg going into the operation. So I came back after 5.5 months back in training, and like you said, in them days, from operation to that, it's usually 9 months. And I came back in, and that was down. I think John Murray came in as a physio, and he was an avid cyclist, and he works in cycling now. And the work we done morning, afternoon was like, I look back now, and it was non-stop, and it was a graft. And that was, I knew I had to come back fitter and stronger than I was before, and I had to do that to get back in the first team. The lads were playing, they were top end of the table. I was watching the games, and that was driving me on to that I have to get myself stronger and fitter so I can get back. I might get a couple of games in at the end of the season. And fortunately, I did. Unfortunately, it was 95 degrees heat in Blackpool, and I was a little bit tired.
Was there any real dark days, though, within them, like 5.5 months, where you're probably thinking, this is really tough. I'm just going in on my own. I'm training by myself. Because obviously when you're injured, people don't understand that you don't really have much to do with the first team or training. You just the physio, or anyone else that's injured. Was there any dark days at home where you thought, and the support from family, friends, anything that really kept you going?
Yeah, I was still living with my parents at the time, and so I was getting well looked after at home, probably a little bit too much well looked after in the sense of the food and things like that. But yeah, the news at first, as much as you try not to be fit, like it's your cruciate ligament, it's your career, there's a chance it's not going. But the more I was working on like each stage, because I had something to focus on, and I could see the improvements. I was fortunate enough that I didn't have any setbacks on that one. It was quite a smooth, like 6 weeks, 6 week blocks, and I was improving all the time. I think if I had any setbacks, that would have been a really hard challenge, but I was fortunate if I didn't, and things worked out quite well on that, and I came back probably stronger and fitter than I did at the beginning. There's been injuries favouring my career, which I've had dark days and lost the love of football and everything through injuries, and it was hard, really hard and frustrating. And like you said, but you get back, and I think the playing and just enjoying the game again and playing again brings you back out of that. But it is tough being injured, but you've got to get through it, and you've got to keep focusing, because as soon as you start seeing them improvements, it strives you on.
I mean, you played, like, for me, people now see the support Hartlepool, and obviously they're in a position that they're in. When you were playing, you were right at the top of the second division. You were playoffs, promotion. You are, for me, you're one of Hartlepool's best ever players. And obviously these questions are coming in, and people want to know, like, who was the best trainer over them, obviously, them years, and like, who was the best trainer that you trained with?
Probably, I'll say you, Clark. You always had a good go, Clark. But no,
I know it wasn't me.
I look back at the lads who Chris Beach was so professional, and in like I said, in them days there was a few. He was one of the first ones to really step the benchmark and really step up to say, no, this is what it takes to be a professional. And he was like, I looked at him for, yeah, he done things by himself off the pitch. He was always in top fitness. So there was people like Chris, and then you go on Tommy Miller's, different people like that who really, Tommy I think come through, and then all of a sudden he just clicked how professional he needed to be, how fit he needed to be, and that strived him on to go on and bigger and better things. But we had a group of lads, especially when we were in the top end, like come in, Rich Humphreys, different lads like that, so dedicated, so strive for it to be as good as it could be. And there was a group of lads in the end who just worked for each other and worked and strived each other on, and that's why you end up being successful.
So obviously, as a successful team, and obviously you evolved as a team over 4 years, because obviously in the end, I think it was the 90, the year you got promoted was, what year was that? 2000 and no, what year did you get promoted?
2002, I think it was.
2002. So and that was when obviously
2002, 2003 season.
2003, you finally got promoted, as in you didn't need playoffs anymore because we weren't a very lucky side in playoffs. So you just did it, you just went up, and obviously I think you lost out on the championship, didn't you, on the last day of the season?
We were going really well up until Christmas. I think Chris had gone on to Sheffield Wednesday. Mike Neal came in, and it was a very difficult job, I think, for any manager to come in to a top of the league team. It was difficult. It was, and I think he'd done the right thing. He tried to keep things going as much as he could in the same way, and it was. But unfortunately, we had a bad run of games where we were many points clear. So the last game of the season was, if we won the league. If we draw or obviously lost, Russian Diamond won it, because that's who we played the last game of the season, and that was. It was a great game. One where I think I got a disallowed goal in it. It still hurts me now, but no, it was the promotion. The promotion is what we wanted. The championship would have been fantastic, but the promotion is what we wanted that season, and we set out from day one, and it was so we knew. I remember Gordon Watson wrote on the change room door, champions. We didn't get champions, but we got promotion. He'd done that in pre-season, and every day you walked in, you'd seen that, and it just spurred you on.
Yeah, and obviously that season though, you got promoted, but then you left that summer to go to Sheffield Wednesday. What was that like, not fulfilling the dream to go up with Hartlepool, or was that a conscious decision that it was time to move on?
I got to 24. I was out of contract. I was on a free transfer, and it was something at the time. Sheffield had approached us when they were in the championship, and it was an opportunity for me. And the plan was that to go play that for them in the championship. Unfortunately, they got relegated just before the end of the season, and I'd already signed a pre-contract. But I'd had fantastic time at Hartlepool, and I think it was time, eight years from leaving school. I was just time for myself, just to go have a new challenge, and it's one I think I just needed to do for myself, and it was one of them. And I never regret. You can't regret things in life, but it was hard, the playoffs, finals, and playing games against Hartlepool, because I had great friends, and the club itself gave me the opportunity, and I always follow the club now, and I'll still follow it for the rest of my life.
I mean, obviously, going from Hartlepool, average of probably 3,500 to 4,000 fans, to Sheffield Wednesday, probably average of 25 to 30,000 fans. What was that like, moving to Sheffield and having that, becoming more prominent, becoming more noticed? How did that change your life, or did it change your life?
It didn't change who I am. But it was strange. It was strange. I think the first time me and my wife Gemma, we went down. We looked at some houses, and then we done a bit of shopping in the big Meadow Hall. And someone kept following me. There was a group of people behind me, and I kept whispering to my wife, saying, "Some people following us here," thinking it was a bit dodgy. And it went from shop to shop, and it was like, they were about 18, 19-year-old, a few lads. In the end, I had to turn around and say, "Can I help you, lads?" And they had old receipt and said, "Yeah, have you just signed for Sheffield? Can you sign this?" And I was like, "Oh, wow." And that was the first time I realised where, this is actually a big deal, this place. And then first time I went to the stadium for a game, it was just another level. It was another level. The atmosphere and everything about it was just, oh my God, a massive, massive club. And enjoyed my time there, really did.
I mean, you went on to captain, obviously, Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, that's a huge honour for anybody, but to captain a club like that, what was that like, to have the honour of captaining the club?
Any club you put the armband on, you're going to be delighted to. I wasn't a regular captain there, but I always stepped in when the main captain wasn't playing or injured or something. But the times I did, it's amazing. But it's the same at any club. As soon as you step on the pitch, you've got to be a leader. You've got to play. And I think it was just the way I played more than anything was why I got the armband. I was a little bit brave, as you can see, for the nose.
Did the ethos change at the different clubs? So obviously, Hartlepool's expectations to Sheffield Wednesday's expectations. So was there a difference in training? What was the ethos?
No, I think whichever club you go at, as players, you want to win games. The Hartlepool, the last, like I said, 3-4 seasons, we were top end, and we were wanting to win games, and we were expected to win games in the end. And that took me when I went to Sheffield. That's what I wanted. I wanted exactly the same. And the fans, obviously from a big club, they just got relegated, expected big expectations from the team that season. And it wasn't a good season. It fizzled out. I think we were 15th in the end. So it wasn't what the fans wanted. There was a lot of mourning towards the end of the season because they'd gone from relegation to the Premiership to Championship, and then they were bottom end of League One. So that end of that season was hard. It was hard for the club and the players and the fans. But then the next season, Chris rebuilt. Unfortunately, he didn't fulfill the season, but that was the season we went up.
Obviously, Chris lost his job, obviously because the huge expectations on the club. Then another new manager comes in. How do you like change your style, or because obviously new managers come in, new ideas.
Yeah.
Do you feel how does that feel? What do you think of that?
One, you want to try and impress. Unfortunately, I was injured when I was just coming back from injury, a knee operation from pre-season, the tackling pre-season. So you want to impress. I didn't know at the time, so I got myself back playing. I was playing the reserves, and the first team we weren't really winning, but he wasn't playing me. So I went to see the new manager, and it was Paul Sturrock. And I said, like, I'm fit, I feel strong, I'm playing the reserves, doing well. How come I'm not starting games? And he'd said, and this is how you get judged when you first see is, I watched you in your Walsall in reserve game, and you didn't really do very well, and you lost a few headers and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I was only playing 45 minutes in that game to get through injury and not to like make contact. But a new manager came in and judged me on that because he didn't know. So that was difficult. But eventually I forced my way back in, and we went on a 20-odd game unbeaten run, which cemented our place in the playoffs. But again, another injury hampered me, missing out on the playoff run and missing out on the playoff final against Hartlepool.
Yeah, I mean, that's something obviously you want to touch on. Obviously, you went to Millennium Stadium and you played a playoff final against obviously the team you'd just left. Obviously, you weren't involved, which obviously seeing a lot of your people that you've just played with recently for 5-6 years, but then your new club obviously wanting promotion. What was that feelings like? Obviously, being on the winning team but not actually playing, and seeing obviously people that you know disappointed.
It was hard. It was strange because obviously you're in the game, you're caught up in the game, and you're watching it, and it goes to extra time, and your team are winning. You're on the bench, and everyone's buzzing around you, and you get caught up in that. So you're excited, but as soon as the whistle went, and I see my old teammates, I went on obviously happy, but the first thought was to go see the Hartlepool lads who I know and give them a pat on the back and like shake the hand. But to be fair to all the players there, they just went, go enjoy yourself, go get on with your celebration, which that's the type of characters they all were. They were brilliant lads, but it was hard seeing them and what they missed out on. But obviously, yeah, you have to focus on where you are and what I was wanting, and that was taking me to the Championship for the first time in my career.
So obviously you're looking at obviously moving up. So you've moved up to the Championship, and you started, I think, the first 15, 16 games in the Championship. What was that like playing in the Championship?
It was loved it. I loved it. It was weird. So the injury what put me out from the playoff final allowed me to run all pre-season. And if you ever seen a Paul Sturrock pre-season, it's the hardest pre-season I've ever done. But I had to do double of that because I just ran, and I was only allowed to run. I couldn't do the football. And it wasn't until 4 days before the season started that I was allowed to kick a ball. So I remember going in like only 3 days of kicking a ball into the Stoke game away, and we drew nil each. Fortunately, I think they got Jerry Taggart sent off early on, so it wasn't as testing as it could have been for me. But I loved it, enjoyed it. It was just unfortunately Paul Sturrock had brought in Graham Coughlin, who we'd had for many years at Plymouth, and he actually said to me, "I'm signing Graham. I don't think you two will play well together, and if he's fit, he'll play." So that was a challenge for me, and he even went back to the Walsall game from the start when he first seen me and mentioned that again, and that's how things stick in managers' heads. But so I had a battle there, and I come to Christmas time, and I just said I went in and said I want to leave, and he didn't want me to leave. He said, "No, you can go on loan," but I said, "No, I don't want to play for you anymore." And it was I think I spat my dummy out because in the first time of my career, things weren't going the way I wanted, even though you said I played 15 games. So it was something I needed to learn from later in my career, that I couldn't react in certain ways and spit me dummy out as quick as I could have held on and seen what happened. But I did, but I don't regret it. I went to Doncaster and I had some fantastic years there.
As you say, though, you did something that you now think, but you said you didn't regret it. But it was a huge move to leave a championship club where you did all right because you played the first 15 games, but then obviously you dropped down back into the first division. Obviously, Doncaster came in for you. How did you feel, though? Did you feel a regret that you'd left the championship, or did you feel, I'm dropping down to step back up?
That was my plan. That was the plan, to drop down and step back up. I look back now, and you can look back at so many decisions you make and think, probably shouldn't have done that. I just signed a new contract at Sheffield, and I said I walked away from it to go. But the ambition of Doncaster was there. They sold me what they wanted to do with the stadium and everything they wanted to do. So I was bought into. I had other options, other clubs, but what they'd showed me and the ambition they wanted was exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, probably shouldn't have dropped out the championship at the time, but I did, and I had some great times until the last season of Doncaster. The year Doncaster went up, unfortunately, I was out for the whole season with injuries.
What did you say, though? You dropped down to play, obviously, for Doncaster, and you were sold a premise of the new stadium, and obviously you come in. Obviously, did you go you captain straight away?
Yes, I went in. I think my second or third game, I came in. The captain's armband was on my peg, and that was it. When I signed, they just lost. The captain had just left, so obviously I came in after 2 games. He gave me the captaincy, and that I stayed with that till I left the club. So again, it was another great honour to be captain, and I look back, my fondest memories of on the pitch and my big achievements is from at that time at Doncaster.
And obviously, Dave Penny was manager when you first went to Donny. But obviously, something happened. Obviously, in football, it's brutal. Obviously, anybody who's played football, there's no friends in football. If you're not, it's about results first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then obviously, Sean O'Driscoll came in. How did that change again, or was he obviously very much for you?
Total different character. You've gone from Dave Penny, who was really full on enthusiastic on the pitch, to Sean came in, and you were hard to read how he wanted. He had his own ways, and it took time. Sean liked to work with players he'd worked with before, so they understood him. He had brought in Richard O'Kelly, who's now assistant at Aston Villa, full of energy, full of real professional, organised, and he was like Sean's voice. It was total different. I look at, and he was the first manager that really made me think about preparation of games and understanding the opponents, and his preparation was fantastic and what he wanted. On the game days, I think sometimes a little bit different, but my biggest thing, it was just hard for me to understand. I like the manager. I went from Sheffield Wednesday where I had a defensive coach who, if you made one mistake in the game, even if you won the game 3-0, you knew you were in trouble. And I think I responded to that, knowing that I had to be on my game unless I was getting nailed. And I went from that to Sean, and I didn't understand what he wanted. I never got that, some feedback he'd put on paper and things, and I don't know, it was just a little bit difficult. I think Sean liked the younger group so he could mould to what he wanted, and it obviously it worked. But some of his ways and how he worked, it was the first time, like you said, I was coming 28, 29, started jotting things down in a little book for me to remember later on when I changed or wanted to go into coaching. So I remembered little things of how he worked and what he did.
So was that when you thought, I want to go into coaching? Obviously, some players don't wait until like the 34, 35. Others always know. Some players don't actually want to go into coaching. It was actually, what age did you think? So, yes, I do want to coach now.
It was round about that, in that time. I'd been captain of Doncaster probably 2 years odd, and seeing how the people worked and different managers, I just started coming to me that that's where I want to go when I retire. And so I started jotting things down, what managers did, remembering what other managers did and different coaches did, and how things, what I believed I'd like, and I started doing that. And I think it was the last season at Doncaster when I got injured. I just lost that love. I was low. I remember saying, I don't know if it was to my wife or if I got a coaching job now, I think I'd take it. And that was at 29-year-old. But I should have been in my prime. But I'd gone from a neck injury pre-season. I got myself in as fit as I'd possibly been out of season. Trained like hard than I've ever trained. Got myself in, and the first day pre-season, I herniated a disc in my neck. Didn't know at the time and carried on then. So I had to rest for 7 weeks or 8 weeks, complete rest, wasn't allowed to do a thing. Came back into training and they just said, I'll get your fitness through. Just joined in with lads. And as I joined in, I tried to do some extra and done a few jumps and got a sharp pain in my knee. Once I got that checked out, it was another 4 months of out. And the knee it never really recovered. It was always niggling me for the rest of my career then. And that year, and then I went at Bradford and I just didn't feel as though I was playing to the level I should be playing at. And I just didn't have that love. I just kept looking, thinking, I think I'd rather be coaching than playing at the moment. And I played 46 games for Bradford that year.
Well, even before that, though, just going back into Doncaster, you scored a winning goal in a major cup final at the Millennium Stadium. I think it was the 110th minute, 2-2 against Bristol Rovers, and you score a header to win Doncaster the Johnson Paint Trophy at the Millennium Stadium.
Yeah.
What sort of feeling do you get for that?
Well, as you know, any feeling when you score, Clark, it's some feeling. But to do that at that stage, we were 2-0 up early on, and then you go to each, and you've been in them games when you go to each, and you can crumble or you roll your sleeves up. And fortunately, we rolled our sleeves up and we hung in the game. And then to get that in extra time, it felt like slow motion when I celebrated. And I spoke about not long ago to somebody else. I always remember we celebrated, and then Paul Heffman said to me, "Look at that," and like pointing at the crowd. And I looked at the crowd, and I thought I stood there for about 10 seconds, really sobbing it all up. And when I look back at it, I literally looked and walked away, but I felt so I took it all in, and it felt like it was and that feeling amazing, just looking at the fans. And there was 67,000 there, the atmosphere, everything about it. So to do that and to be captain and lift the trophy was like I said earlier, some of my biggest achievements, and that was one of them.
I mean, 67,000, did you say, at the Millennium Stadium? And it was actually probably I think it was the last major final at the Millennium Stadium.
Yeah.
So obviously you hold that record if anyone wants a quiz question. And then obviously it was going back to the new Wembley. But then obviously, as you say, the next season you've had some really dark days, and then you left Doncaster and went to Bradford, and obviously I think you signed a 2-year deal on a premise that they wanted promotion.
Yeah.
So now you're starting to go around different clubs. How did that feel as a player? Did you feel like a journeyman, or did you just think it's a new challenge?
No, it was a company. Doncaster had gone up. I'd been injured all season. It was just one of them where I think I had a chat with the manager April time. I wasn't even quite fit, but I knew I wasn't going to be in his plans. So it was hard. It was hard to take the fact that you've been injured for that long and you're not going to get the opportunity to come back and try and fight for your place. So leaving, and then I had, like I said, I had different options. I had different options League One, but Bradford was just, it was just again another. It was like another big club there, and what they wanted to do. And I looked at it as so if I could take Bradford from League Two into League One, it'd be some achievement for them fans and what they wanted. And so I'd signed a 2-year contract, but it was one of them because they were trying to push for promotion. I think they had a few lads on contract that if they didn't, it wasn't successful, then the lads could leave on the lads' terms, sort of thing. So I played 46 games. We were top of the league at Christmas, but we fizzled out, and it just one of them seasons what it could have been much better than what it was. And like I said, I felt so personal level. I wasn't playing to the level I should have been at, and I've come back. I'd come away from a 9-month injury, going in. Maybe I expected more from myself from how I was playing. So it was difficult. And that, like I said, I came into the summer a little bit down, but I was trying to be positive. I spoke to Stuart McCall saying, usually get promoted on my second season at a club, and so next year could be the one. And then I got a sort of like a strange pair of Bradford, which meant they were trying to like force me to leave sort of thing. So, but I'd had a call off Notts County, who I'd been told were getting billionaires to back him and all this, and would I be interested? Which again, you see what's happening in Bradford. They're not wanting you really, but this club with all its ambition are. So I ended up going along to Notts County while Sven-Goran Eriksson and all them came in and had quite an eventful season.
And obviously going on, linking on to left Bradford and signed for Notts County. And as you say, you signed for Notts County, and then obviously the ex-England manager Sven-Goran Eriksson takes over. They signed Kasper Schmeichel from Manchester City.
Yeah.
What's that like? Obviously playing under somebody who was England manager, and then obviously a future Premier League winner.
It was strange. Ian McParland was the manager. He signed me, and he was the manager. So he took the start of the season. But we knew when we went into sign that the big takeover had happened. These men were going to be coming in to oversee things. So it was surreal. It was exciting. But he had Sven and Goran Eriksson and Todd Grip with him every day, and they watched training. They came and watched training every single day while they were at the club. And I'm talking when it was -5, snowing, hailstone. They stood in the corner, big coats on. I'm sure Todd Grip still had his England tracksuit on, but and every day. And they congratulated us because we were doing really well and spoke briefly to you, but really nice. But apart from that, didn't have a massive impact on the players' side of it. Maybe he spoke to the manager more than what we've seen. I'm not sure, but just having them around the place was like you look at people, even your families want to meet him and different things. And then you've got Kasper Schmeichel coming in, and Kasper was only young at the time. He came in and he was at first, I don't know if he knew how to take it or we knew how to take him. And then after a couple of weeks, he settled down and he was absolute top lad. And as a keeper, it was, I don't know, it was one of them, sometimes they had penalties or the 1v1 and you just knew he'd save it. And and that's what he did. He was phenomenal keeper, and that's why he is what he is now. He was a different level to most keepers I've played with. Sol Campbell didn't really have the impact. I think he got wind that there wasn't the money what he was promised, and the thought of going to Morecambe, I think that was his only game. He went to Morecambe and he played one game, and then that was him, job done. But then he went back and played for Arsenal, I think, against Barcelona. So it was strange. It was strange.
Huge names, but I'm saying, so you're playing with Kasper Schmeichel, who played the full year, and I think he was named PFA Goalkeeper of the Year for that league. And Could you tell he was going to go back and be a Premier League winner?
Yeah.
Could you tell? You know, put your coaching head on.
Yeah, you knew probably after about 4 games in, you knew you had something special behind you. So as a centre half, and you know you've got to keep it behind you, you can rely on, and he's going to be. He was another level. He was absolutely. His distribution was never seen that type of distribution before. Coming in, how he side volleys, drilled them into people. It was another level. And like you said, I think he must have saved 5 penalties on a row. And I remember going to Hereford, and I think he gave a penalty away himself. Probably, I think it was my fault. Why? But he did. And the penalty take. You're in his head. You're like, he saved the last 5. You're not scoring. And the lads looking at you and Rob, he saved the last 5. And he goes and saves it again. And you're just like, having that as a player behind you gives you so much confidence.
Obviously, you were coming to obviously the end. Obviously, you left Notts County then, and he obviously went on to bigger and better things. You obviously left because obviously I think something happened, didn't it, at Notts County? It didn't go the way Notts County wanted it to go.
What, for myself, you mean, or
from a club point of view? Obviously,
no, yeah. Towards the end of that season, it was highlighted that the money wasn't there, what was promised, and the backing wasn't there. So I had probably more meetings in that 1 year's players than I did in my career, but it brought the players together. So the players in that changing rooms, and credit to Matt Partland, he didn't go out and buy all just fancy names. He brought lads who were successful in that league, and we went on to win the league quite comfortably in the end. So with all the off-field antics were going on, it did bring the players together. And then we got promoted in League One, and we'd had the change of manager. Steve Cockrell had come in to win us the league, and then he went back. I think he went to Portsmouth or somewhere. So we had Craig Shaw come in as a new manager, and he was good. We started the season doing all right, steady away, and then battling away down the bottom end, but not in much risk. And I think the new chairman wanted another face and a push up the league and brought Paul Ince in, and it didn't quite work out how we wanted it to work out in that season. Well, for Paul Ince.
So Paul Ince came in, and obviously being a manager, and he's been playing for England. Why didn't it work out? Was there differences, or did he just not fancy you as a player?
It was hard. It was weird. He came in with his ideas, and we wanted to play, and he was quite open to the press, saying these players are not mine, and blah blah blah. So it didn't quite create a good atmosphere, and the organisation, for me, when I was experienced and working with Sean and Driscoll and different people, it wasn't quite up to the standard it should have been. And unfortunately, so it went the season, then we started dropping down the league and being in more of a relegation battle. And then it was, and I'd had many debates with him about being in the team and out the team. And then all of a sudden, I got back in the team, and he started liking me, and then he left. He got sacked. So and then we got Martin Allen, who came in, and Martin Allen was another kettle of fish, but he has a persona about him, but he was very, very clued up, and he done an amazing job keeping us up.
And then obviously you went down the league. I think, did you leave Notts County and go to Darlington?
I did, yeah, at the time. It was strange. It was a strange when you talk about coaching. So the end of that season under Martin Allen, I'd got sent off when he first came in, so I didn't play, and he had me on the bench alongside him. And because I feel as though I can see certain things in the games, like we'd go into half time and he'd be talking to his staff and anything from you, and I'd voiced my opinion a few times, and he seemed to like it. So he kept me on the bench with him majority of the end of that season. And then at the end of the season, he even had me running the lads after games. And at the end of the season, he offered me to go in as the youth team manager, but also work with the first team. Not play anymore, but stay on as youth team manager and first team on match days. and I made a few calls. I was 33. I felt as though I was playing well at back, playing so I wanted to play. And so I made a few calls to lads who were in them jobs, and they said, if you can keep playing, keep playing. So I made my decision to carry on. And me and my wife would lived away for 10 years. I'd had opportunities to stay in the Football League, but Darlington were looking at being ambitious and wanted to try and get back in the Football League. So I chose to move ourselves back home and play for Darlington.
Obviously, you didn't do the ultimate thing and go from Hartlepool to Darlington, so I'm not as bad as myself.
Was that you?
Yeah. But obviously, playing for Darlington, was it different though, because Hartlepool were in the league and there wasn't really that association that they were playing each other?
It's. I think so. I think for the fans of Darlington and everything, it was difficult because, and I think for all North East, you want them all to be in the same leagues. When we played for Hartlepool and you played Darlington, it was massive. It was a great occasion, fans, everyone, and you love playing in them games. So it would have been lovely to be involved in them games, but it would have been very strange to be on the other side and be on the Darlington side against Hartlepool. So I'm probably looking back, I'm glad I didn't play in one of them derbies like you did.
For the other clubs. And then obviously, your career then started to curtail a little bit. And you started to think about, obviously, the next chapter of your life. And obviously, at the moment, you're coaching Middlesbrough, which obviously is another huge club. Obviously, when did you start taking your steps into coaching? When did you really take it serious?
So I obviously under Martin Allen was like that end of that season was a real factor where I started like having an impact in the game and voicing my opinion, and the manager seemed to like it. So I'd started my B license the year before. So when I'd spoke to Martin Lanley, he said, you need to go past your B license before he can speak to you. So I went and got assessed and done that. But then I chose to play, and Middlesbrough played Darlington pre-season, and I knew Mark Proctor, Persey, Mowbray. I knew him from playing and being local lads and different things. So I just had a chat with him before the game, and I said, "Look, I've passed my B license. I'm looking to get into coaching. Is any jobs in the academy?" And Dave Parnby rang me 2 weeks later and said, "Can you come in and have a chat?" So I did. I went down and ended up getting in the under 12s and doing the coaching the under 12s and 13s in the academy, and while I was still playing for Darlington. But then Darlington went into administration, and I'd done my knee had give way for the final time. I'd had an operation, so I couldn't play anymore professional. So that was when I thought myself, right, I need to really concentrate on getting in. And I was fortunate that Gary Gill offered me a scouting role full time within the club. So I was doing the academy on the night, and I thought myself, I'll take the scouting role to get myself in and get me experience. And so I took the scouting role as well. So I was there 24/7, really, every day, Monday to Friday, 4 nights a week as well. And then I was playing for a non-league team on a Saturday, just once I was back fit. So I was getting my football fix and as well I was playing, I was getting all the watching players and also coaching the young lads. And then within a year's time, the under-21 assistant role came up, and there was a lad who was, at the time, who was manager, was Jamie Clapham, who I played with in Notts County. So he'd give me a little heads up to say, would you be interested? I'd like you to be the one who comes in. So I went for the job and ended up lucky enough getting it.
So obviously now you've moved up to head coach of the under-23s. As I say, at a huge club like Middlesbrough, developing the young lads and you've learned from all these different managers. How is your coaching style? What do you take, and how do you obviously try to develop these young lads to get through into a cutthroat business to get into Middlesbrough's first team?
It's a phase you go in, and I think it was more about trying to bridge the gap of academies to first team and what it takes, and giving the experience and how you were, and just making them understand that. And it's the same now, that hard work is the key. Disciplined, hard work, being brave enough. So if you play an intensity, your ability will always come through. and it's sometimes the opposite with the young lads, and they think their ability is enough, but they'll never play to the potential if they only think the ability and a few little passes in there. It's just so we're just trying to implement what it takes to get there and how hard you have to work. Our lads now are coming to the tip of the mountain, and they're that close to getting to the summit, but it's a massive step to get there, sort of thing. And so it's just giving them that extra push to try and get there, and that extra guidance. If it's my experience as a player, my experience as a coach, but bottom line is that the lads have got to show that they want it themselves, and they've got to work harder than any other player. You think about all the other clubs in the country are doing the same thing. Players in them positions, players above you, there's always players below you. So if you're not prepared to work hard and do the right things, we've got many staff now to help and guide the lads. And if you don't utilise it, the next lad, the year below him, they're going to utilise it, and they're going to get close, and they're going to take over you. So they've got to be, every single day they're going to get judged, and every day they've got to be on it.
So you talk about philosophies. Is there a philosophy at Middlesbrough where it's linked from 18s to 23s to first team? Is there a philosophy all the way through, or is it you do your way with the?
No, it's all, everything's trying linked all the way through. So we're not. What we don't want is to be coaching at a 12-year-old in a certain way, and then we have to change it when we get to 18, 19. So all the coaches are in the same office, from under 9s to under 23s. You've got the head of coaching in the same office. So everything's guided. We're all guided in the same way. We all had our own little experiences, but we'll all try and pass that on to each other as well. So if one lad's got a certain way, we all want to make sure we're all doing the same way. I don't want to teach lads how to defend from crosses and have body shapes one way, and then somebody else is teaching another. So we have to have all the way through. But it's not just the philosophy, it's the detail within the philosophy. We have to have the same. So each if it's attacking players, if it's midfield, whatever position it is, we want them to be all having the same traits, and then their own personalities will come through and their own abilities will come through. But it's just trying to guide them players in the right way. But we've all got to be singing on the same sheet.
Yeah, obviously listening to yourself and obviously all the previous people I spoke to is they talk a lot about detail and passion and desire. And how do you feel though when somebody who you feel's got lots of ability, but then you have to release them, or they don't fulfil their potential? Do you take that as a slant on yourself, or do you just think it's one of those things?
I've 7-8 years of doing it now, and I've seen every year, and it's usually one of the most gifted ones. It's so frustrating because you get them and they're coming excited, and I don't know if they've come through and it's been easier for them because of that much ability and that much pace, but then other people start catching them up and they don't know how to handle it. I'm not sure, but the personality, they have to stay hungry, they have to stay want it, and it's like ideally even the parents have a massive factor all the way through from the young age, because how much you praise them and tell them well done they're doing, does that keep them hungry enough to want to do it every week, or is it, well, I've done enough now, I'm all right now? And I see it at the 23s. You see it. You'll see lads in the gym or lads on their pitch doing extra individual work, and you'll see the other lads, and it's sometimes the lads with the most talent walking up the hill, and you're like, you don't understand how much more they need to do to fulfill what they've got. And it is so frustrating, and you do feel as though you've failed when you see a talented lad go out the door.
Obviously, trying to think about linking to yourself is what's your ambition then, moving on as a coach? Do you want to be a number one? Is that something you want to see in the future, or do you think you're just building them blocks, as in getting the learning and developing yourself to be ready?
From when I got into 21's assistant, and I was, for the first 2 or 3 years, I wanted to learn that role, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, actually, no, I want to be the lead, and then I've fortunately been getting the lead, and now I'm loving the role, I'm loving it, and I want to take this role forward as long as I can. But my ambitions are, I do want to go into first team, and I do want to at some point have an opportunity to manage a team. Again, I look back at my playing career, and it was more about being a professional and not looking at where I could be or what I want to be. I want to manage at some point at the highest level as I can, at the highest level, and that'll be my ambition. That'll be my goal. I'm not in a rush to do it. I'm enjoying what I'm doing now, but I do want to be. I want to manage, and I want to manage at the highest level.
So, if you had advice for young kids coming through, what sort of traits would you say they needed?
All the work to do now, they're all technically gifted lads. Majority, our philosophy is about making sure everyone's capable, technical enough. It's being hungry enough and thinking, no, I haven't done enough. And every day is a new day. So whatever you've done the day before, it's gone. You have to do it again. So every day you want to come in and be the best trainer every single day. So every game you play, I want to be the best player. Every training, I want to be the best. I've seen Steven Gerrard. He came in, he said every day he'd go home upset if he wasn't the best player in training every day. And that's what you've got to be. If you want to be the best, or if you want to fulfill your potential or be a professional, you've got to strive. You've got to be hungry every single day. Not just think, oh, I've done enough. I'll just wait till the match and I'll turn it on for the match. No, it's every day in training. And then if anyone's fortunate enough to be in the academies, you've got to utilise every single member of staff to get the best of what they can give you and be the best you could be.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Spike, listening to your career, listening to your coaching, and listening how you've developed. I mean, I can't thank you enough. And if people haven't got anything from that, then obviously they're not listening carefully enough. So really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time, Clark. You really do.
Thank you very much. And obviously,
I appreciate having me, mate. Top man.
Mate.
Thanks, mate.
Stay safe, mate.
And you.